Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network, a women's holistic wellness podcast where our mission is to help women build holistic self-care. The following disclaimer applies to all episodes and content shared on this show. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Limitless Ladies Network or its affiliates. The information and advice provided on this podcast are for general educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional medical, nutritional, or therapeutic advice. The content shared on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or health routine. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are aware of the limitations and potential risks associated with the information and advice shared on this show. You release and hold harmless Limitless Ladies Network, its hosts, guests, and affiliates from any liability for any damages, losses, or injuries that may result from the use of the information and advice provided on this podcast. Hello, and welcome to today's Limitless Ladies Network podcast, where we are limitless in sharing lessons to advocate and drive insightful, empathetic self-care. We are pleased to have with us today Mel, who's the founder of Honeybee Jasmine Healing. She's here with us to explain the ancient art of crystal healing, which I'm very excited about. Mel brings a unique blend of lived experience and professional training to create a holistic practice that truly meets people where they are on their wellness journey. Her approach is compassionate, personalized, and rooted in the belief that healing is not one size fits all. It's deeply an individual process that deserves customized care and an unwavering support, which she provides. So welcome, Mel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. It is a pleasure to have you. So before we actually dig into our crystals, no pun intended there, but maybe a little, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into crystals and all the things that you do for healing.
Okay, so my name is Mel. I started Honeybee Jasmine Healing last year in September. I had been sort of toiling with the idea for a while and been on my own healing journey for a very long time. I'm in recovery from substance use and from physical like healing. I was in a car accident, so I've used a lot of holistic journey pathways to get off of medication that was, extreme, like narcotics and different things like that, and been able to sustain recovery and sustain a healthy lifestyle through different holistic practices. And so I started the business so that I can share that with everyone else and help people find what works for them, because I have a lot of experience in figuring out what worked for me and in supporting other people. So crystals is just one of the many things that I offer and do. But I think each of the things that I do could take probably an entire podcast to get into. So
we might come to those at a future time.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you believe in the holistic realm, because I too have gone through not an accident per se, but I've had some physical ailments as well and had to go down the holistic path really in order to recover. So that speaks volumes to me, which is probably why we connected on such a deep level initially.
Yeah, I agree. I love that.
So tell us about crystals and how they can be used, particularly in like stress relief and maybe even emotional balance, and how we might use those.
Okay, so I think in order to kind of get into how crystals would work for emotional balance or stress relief or anything else, I think it's important to talk about what crystals are, where they come from, why they're important. So I think crystals are, like we talked about at the beginning, an ancient sort of mysterious thing that a lot of people don't know a lot about, or kind of touch on, or get kind of misinformation on a lot of the time. And so crystals are minerals. They're formed different parts of the earth. They're formed sometimes underwater, in mountains, under pressure, in light, airy situations, in volcanic rock. So each crystal has its own sort of energy, its own thing that it does because of where it came from and how it was formed in the earth. And so they're natural things. There are a lot of man-made, newer age type things out nowadays too that I won't say don't work. They do work for people if they choose to use them. But yeah, crystals are a natural just substance of the earth.
Awesome. I do feel like there's a lot of misconception around them. Like people think they're just rocks, but I agree that they have such ancient history to them. They've been around since the planet's been here, right? So they must have a lot of energy built up in them.
Yep, and some of them even come from meteorites and things which are actually from outer space. So they're not actually from our planet at all. So that's an interesting thing to know about too. But that's why they're so important to understand how they can be used in stress relief because there's so many different benefits to them. And there's not only emotional, there's physical healing, there's spiritual healing that comes with it, which is why they're holistic because they touch on all of the pieces of healing. And they can be used in so many different ways. So people can place a crystal in their space just because they like the way it looks or they're, if it brings them joy or it radiates some sort of energy that brings them positivity and they like it and they have it in their space. There's different ways to align the energies with different points on the body. So what I do and some other people have for practices, they would lay somebody out on their back and place crystals down the different chakra alignments or on different pressure points in the body, not only for chakra alignment, but for also maybe organ healing, or if somebody needs something for maybe lungs or kidney or something like that, you would place the crystal on the body and it can do its work that way. So there's a lot of different ways that crystals can be used.
That's fantastic. I actually did see that recently. It was just a picture of someone that had crystals laying on them. So that makes sense that they would be aligning in with their chakras and kind of getting that energy. Maybe they're weak in certain chakras versus others. So that's fantastic.
Yep,
How do
and there's
we,
different crystals for different ones too. So certain crystals might align better with different chakras. So maybe something would be aligning with the root chakra versus the crown. So there's different crystals for different things as well.
so can you give us examples of the different crystals that are typically used with each of the seven chakras?
Yeah, so for for example, just in regular average crystal work, before we get into the chakras, there's just for regular stressful emotional healing, quartz is a good one, smoky quartz is a good one. Those ones just provide grounding and sort of bringing us back to emotional balance. We're not sort of, flying high up in the sky. It's bringing us down to earth, bringing us down to that ground level. And then, as we get into different pieces of the chakras and stuff, there's different, like for example, so the root chakra, like I said about that, you might have quartz. You might also have tourmaline because that would be a good one for protecting. And you want to start any energy work on a protective level. So you don't want to have, you want to have a good foundation for it to start with. So that might be a good one to get started with that. For the solar plexus chakra, that's the Manipura in Sanskrit. That would be in, if we're looking at like colors, yellow. It's sort of right around the hip area. It involves like personal power, confidence. So things like that might be a yellow or an orange crystal, maybe citrine, tiger's eye for awareness. And there's just so many, because like I don't want to take up the entire podcast on
Right,
them because
right.
there is a lot of chakras and a lot of different ones. But yeah, if somebody needs further education on it, they can always get with me afterwards or do some research on their own. And I can provide, guidance as to whether or not that research is accurate as well. So
That's great. How, because there are so many different crystals, and I know I've been to various different wellness fairs and to shops where they have just hundreds and hundreds of different, as you said, colors and different types, and even within the same type family, like the like selenite I've seen and some others I'm just kind of throwing out there, or quartz, right? Like there's smoky quartz, there's rose quartz I know of. So there's just so many
Hmm.
different types and colors. How is it best to really, I guess, pick a stone or a crystal, I should say, that would resonate with you? Is there a technique?
So there's multiple different ways that people go about it. So one way to go about it is if you just enjoy the way something looks or feels. If you just go and, say there's a whole table of crystals out and you're just drawn to this one crystal. Maybe you're not sure why. You pick it up, maybe you feel some sort of tinglies. What I like to do is if I'm, not sure what I need or I'm just like on the random hunt, pick something up and I'll sort of like close my eyes, meditate with it for a second, and just feel if I feel some sort of energy. Now, you can actually go and anybody can go try it and they can feel different energies off different crystals. And maybe one that you might resonate with, someone else might not. So, that's a good way, is like sort of just your own personal intuition. And then I've often looked up the properties of said crystal that I picked up, and I'm like, oh, that is exactly what I needed. No wonder that I picked that. It did something with my energy alignment. It did something with my vibration. So that's how crystals work, is they all have different vibrations. And so when we're at different emotional levels, we're vibrating at different frequencies. And so the crystals can either help heighten our vibration and bring us to where we want, or if we're, too elevated, they can sort of help ground us and bring us down. So they can do either or. The other way to pick it is intuition. Also advice from somebody who's a seasoned person, a seasoned advice, from somebody who's given crystal healings or has done a lot of work around crystals and understands them. The other thing too is there's books that you can get. I have a couple of them around. Let me see. So there's like this book here that's Crystals for Healing. There's another one here that I really enjoy. It's the Crystal Bible.
Oh, nice. I
And
remember seeing that one
so,
at the last fair, yeah.
yep. So I carry these everywhere with me. And I know a lot about crystals. There's always still more that I can learn. There's always different things coming up that even I'm still learning more things. But it's good for people to have information on them because they do heal, like I said, emotional things and sometimes physical ailments. So maybe like blue calcite is good for bone pain and bone issues. So somebody might have a blue calcite wand and do sort of a massage with it, and they understand that that's going to heal physical issues in that way. So, yeah, a lot of different ways to go about it. I guess doing research on something is the key after you find what you want, or before you find what you want, you can type in, even just a Google search or one of those books, just an issue that you're having. I'm, looking for stress relief. I'm looking for, some anxiety relief, or my heart is broken and I'm looking for some grieving, some help with the grieving process, even. So something like that. And there's a crystal out there for everything.
It's nice to know that in order to connect with your intuition, which is how you're kind of connecting to that crystal, that it doesn't have to be that I physically feel energy of picking up and holding that crystal. Because I think that was my initial thought, is that, okay, I really like the way this looks, but I don't really feel anything. I'm not feeling any tingling or any sensations. But yet, to your point, like I was drawn to the fact that it was just a beautiful stone and I wanted to have that. And then reading about them later, you're spot on that most times when I pick up something and then I read about it later, I'm amazed at how it is in tune with what I needed at that point in time. So,
Yep, I'm going to say the eyes are the window to the soul. So a lot of the times you take things in visually, even. You don't need to necessarily feel something in order to heal. Sometimes just looking at something and taking in just the beauty of it. And crystals, the other thing too is there's a thing called scrying. So people do like fortune telling and divination with crystals. And you can gaze at them long enough and you kind of go into this meditative state where you're able to receive messages. And
Wow.
um yeah, and that doesn't always work for everyone. That's the other thing is some of this stuff isn't always like I could have two different crystals and maybe they do certain things, or I only have access to one and maybe something calls for two different things. I need crystals like quartz and selenite, and but I can use things for I can put intention into things and I can sort of use that as just a visualize, like a tangible piece to sort of help guide the energy. So
That's a great piece of advice. I know a lot of people that will carry around crystals, and I'm one of them, that if you need courage for something, right? I got my tiger eye with me, or any other crystals that you might need, like you said, for healing or comfort as you're moving through this journey of our life. As we use our crystals, and I have quite a few, not as many as you, I'm sure, when we do use our crystals, how I would imagine that there's a lot of energy that they are emitting, also that they might be receiving, because you had mentioned that you're able to actually put some of your intention into that crystal for whatever healing property that you need at that time. Is there a way that we should kind of cleanse out once we've also cleansed and or purged that energy? Maybe it was a bad thing that we were just needed help with.
So there's any of the elements will cleanse crystals. The only thing I generally advise against, I mean, there's really cool ways, which I will talk about. The one thing I just want to touch on first is always the warning or the heads up. Some things are rocks, some things are crystals that maybe you can get wet. I wouldn't, I unless you know for 100% fact that your crystal is water safe, I wouldn't get everything wet. Certain things, selenite, labradorite, if it's very porous piece of it, not polished, a lot of raw ones, they dissolve in water, or they get sort of, they can get like toxic almost, like if
Mhm.
dissolved or crushed, or not that crystals are toxic. I'm not giving out the idea that they're poisonous, but I just wouldn't always cleanse them with water. Sometimes there's this myth that like, oh, you can just wash every
Right.
crystal, and you don't want to do that. Cleansing doesn't necessarily always mean soap and water, right? So cleansing it, you can burn sage and use that smoke and sort of visualize the smoke energy, um, clearing off the negative energy, clearing off anything it's absorbed, anything it's protected you from. If you get a crystal as a gift or as a donation, or maybe somebody did something with it and then they wanted to get rid of it. If you buy a crystal at a shop and you don't know how many fingers have touched it and then put it back in the bin, these are also reasons why you would want to cleanse it. So the smoke, you would want to use smoke. You can sit it in a bowl of salt, just for the earth element to cleanse it. You can use sound. You can, so that's air. So you can use just a bell, or, ringing, banging a drum, a crystal bowl, sound healing. So you can cleanse them with music. You can visually sit there and just, sort of do actual visualization where you're watching the negative energy get out of the crystal. And then you want to also, at that point, use the crystal to, like, so you want to get rid of that energy, but then you want to fill it back up with whatever your intention is for it, whatever you plan on using it for.
That makes sense. I've done salt. I have never done water, I don't believe, but it's interesting that you say that some of them would dissolve, because that would be very heartbreaking to me if I had a beautiful crystal and I put it in water and then I went back and it was like not there.
Yeah. Yep. People think, oh, I'm just going to leave it in. Oh, the other thing that we didn't talk about, moonlight. So moon cycles are also important, not only for if you're using a crystal to do moon work or moon
Yeah.
spells or moon magic, but moons can also cleanse it. You can also, some people believe that if you leave your crystals out in the moonlight, you want to get up and get them before the sun touches them. Some people believe in letting the sun touch them as well because it gives that balance of masculine and feminine energy. So, again, it's all sort of what your personal practice is. And And you might have to try different things and say, you know what, like I didn't really feel right when I did that, or I liked this better. And if it's different than what you've heard is the quote unquote proper or right way to do it, there really isn't a right or wrong way to do it.
I like that you can customize it to your own needs and wants. I have done the moon, I have done the smoke with sage and with Palo Santo, I think it's called.
Yep.
And also, I've actually buried mine in the earth, but that was kind of sad because it was on a chain of some kind, and then my chain got a little rusty just from the moisture of the earth, but it's okay. It adds some tech.
Mhm. Yeah, I've done that before too. Or I've accidentally lost a spot that I buried a crystal in. I was using it for the earth to cleanse it. And, I went to bed and maybe just was like asleep to more tired when I did it. And then I went back and couldn't exactly figure out. You'd think with a dig mark you'd find it, but it wasn't exactly easy for me. So sometimes you just lose them. And when that happens, I believe that they went on to do whatever other work they were meant to do. Sometimes they weren't meant for us to keep.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it. But yes,
Yeah.
you do need to mark them if you're going to put them outside because you might not find where you dug your little spot for it to heal.
Yep.
Since we are with all these limitless ladies on this network, I would imagine that some of us may be struggling with women's health, right? Whether that's hormonal balances or reproductive wellness, anything like that. Can you suggest any crystals that might actually help with that?
My personal absolute favorite, I think, to do any sort of women's work with is red jasper. For me, it does a lot around balancing the emotional stuff that comes with hormone stuff, whether or not it's your cycle, whether or not it's, PCOS, we all get stressed out. We all have different reactions to hormones, whether it's, maybe you're going through, you're heading towards, you're not going to be getting your cycle anymore, or you're aging, or, things are different, or you're coming off birth control. It's sort of a lot of, ups and downs that comes with that. And the
Oh
red
yeah.
jasper can help regulate all of that stuff. It can boost fertility if you're looking to get pregnant. It sort of it allows everything to flow properly, so your eggs to release at the right time and all of the things to happen when it's supposed to happen. It helps to ease cramps. It can help relax sort of your whole uh muscle structure down there, your whole pelvic area. So that's a good one. Fluorite is also a great one because that helps with detoxification of impurities in the body, helps with menopause issues. It is used a lot for PMS, for people who need to regulate themselves. Um, and then garnet is another one that I like to use because garnet for me, number one, it's red. So the way I look at it is it's sort of like replacing the energy that's lost. So it's kind of like putting the red back in me in a sort of sense.
Mhm.
It can support healthy conception. It can support healthy pregnancies. It also supports healthy hormone production. So it works also not only for women, it helps for men also with hormone production and just hormone regular, making everything regular. So, and then also moonstone, if you're somebody who does work with the cycles and coordinating your feminine self with the divine feminine, you can use moonstone or selenite for that too. So,
I love moonstone. It's one of
yes,
my
I
favorite
do too.
things. Yep. I have a
Me
necklace with
too.
moonstone on it. Wear it every day, just about. So
Yep.
that's
And
great
labradorite.
information.
Yep. And labradorite is moonstone. It's in the same family. So it's all in the feldspar family and it all has that same flash. So if you look at moonstone, if you look at sunstone, and then you look at labradorite, they all have that same sort of flash to it.
Wow.
I just wanted to tell you that real quick.
Yeah. That's good to know that they're very similar to each other. So with all of these properties, and I love that you shared so many options for crystals that we could use for our female health. What do you recommend as well in terms of kind of using them? Like, would you recommend a necklace? Would it be a bracelet? I mean, obviously it's in our pelvic area, so I don't think we're going to be wearing chastity belts these days, but put it in your pocket.
Yeah, you can get little pocket stones and put them in your pocket. You can create a ring, or earrings and just have it sort of like what I do is have earrings and then I visualize it going down with the blood flow down to everything, you know. So I just kind of visualize the energy being carried down with my blood vessels. You can even do a bracelet and just do the same thing and have it on your inner wrist where kind of your blood is guaranteed to pass through. Some people just want to have it in their space, in their car. They feel good about just having it in their pocket, and maybe they don't want it touching their skin, or they're not a jewelry person. So you don't have to wear it for it to work. You can just carry it. You can, some people just do like a little spell jar thing that they leave at home and they visualize that energy. So maybe they touch the crystal in the morning and they say, okay, I'm picking up this energy for the day. And then they go home at the end and they've used that crystal's energy even if they didn't bring it with them. So
Yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah, there's so many ways to use them.
Yeah, it's limitless in how they can use them, right? All kinds,
Exactly.
all kinds of possibilities.
I love that.
How are crystals used alongside meditation and manifestation and moon rituals? I know I use them for my moon rituals.
And I use them too for manifestation a lot of the times where I'll put them into something like we talked about, putting that energy into it. And so I use it as sort of a channel to my divine. So if maybe I'm calling upon a certain deity for a certain manifestation practice, because I do a lot of pagan and Wiccan type stuff, I'm sort of eclectic. I have my own kind of practice. But if I'm using it as a channel, then I use it for manifestation a lot, and I will put it on maybe a crystal grid or some sort of spell work on my altar. And then if it was something that maybe it was like a negative thing or it was to protect me or to carry me through some hard time, I might think it's for its work and bury it. If it was something that, you know, was a maybe a joyous occasion or something that's not going to tie so much negative energy to it or negative energy that I'm going to label as negative, I oftentimes will just do a cleansing and then just repurpose it for something else. Um, but yeah, it's the same thing. They don't need to necessarily be like on you, but it's good to have one if you're meditating too, to just feel it and sort of have something to hold you to the present moment. That's a way that I like to do it too.
Yes, it it does kind of ground you, right?
Yep,
It gives you a focus too for those people maybe that are not used to meditating because they have something tangible to hold and maybe focus on, and even just being tactile, feel that, maybe roll it in their hands, and it gives them that experience. So that gives them something really to focus on, right?
exactly. And then for people too who maybe, like we talked about, don't feel the energy of the crystal right away, sometimes holding it and sitting with it and getting to know it a little bit over a few minutes, you can get rid of sort of that. You obviously can't ever quiet your brain down. That's the meditating is not to get rid of the noise. It's to learn how to focus on other things while the noise is happening. And so if you're able to meditate long enough, you maybe can start to feel the crystal a little bit, whereas you couldn't before because you weren't quiet enough long enough or weren't still enough to get there.
Right. So, what are some common myths or misconceptions about crystals that you've heard, and what can you debunk for us?
Well, I think two of them. One of them is that a lot, so there are crystals, right? So lithium is something that is a mineral that we can get prescribed, or, you know, sometimes people do take calcium, which is another mineral. It's not necessarily a crystal, but these are different minerals and pieces of the earth. That does not mean every crystal is meant to be ingested. That does not mean every crystal is meant to be. Sometimes people want to make like this tincture and like soak the like we talked about before, soaking the crystals in water and, you know, drinking the tincture, and that can be very toxic and poisonous, and sometimes people don't know that. um and the other thing too is that there's no actual, I mean, there is scientific evidence that things vibrate at different frequencies. There is scientific evidence about densities. there is no actual real scientific evidence as of now that crystals are actually they work. So this is all, some people might go, it's woo woo, it's sort of witchy, it's it's not real, it's but it works for people. And there are millions of people who have actual, they have healed cancer, they have healed, a lot of physical ailments. There are people who's, had osteoporosis that have cured themselves. And so for somebody to say it doesn't work, I just say the science isn't there yet to actually investigate how it's working. I think we're not advanced yet to that level. I think it is so ancient that we just haven't gotten, our toes dipped into it yet. But I think people think that it is scientific. Oh, it's science that it works. And it's like, no, it's actually not science that it works. There's no actual scientific proof. There is just a lot of other proof. And people, the placebo effect is a real thing, but then there's also about channeling energies, and there's also about, if you believe something is going to happen, and if you really truly believe that, you actually can direct energies, and that is a scientific fact. So so I guess make of it what you will, and kind of like see what works for you and what works in your practice. If you try out crystals and they're just not your jam, that's fine. They're not for everybody. And if you love them and you have a million of them, and that's great too. So
Well, this was really fantastic, Mel. Thank you so much for all this insightful information on crystals and really digging in with us. I very much appreciate it. I'm sure our audience does too.
I appreciate the opportunity of being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we will definitely be doing another one on some
Yay.
other cool topic, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have so many, so I'm excited.
Yes. So for our audience, Mel, where can our audience find you? I know you have your website, which is honeybeejasminehealing.com. Are you
Yep.
on
And they
Facebook?
Yep, Honeybee Jasmine Healing on Facebook. You can email me, honeybeejasminehealing@gmail.com. Basically, Honeybee Jasmine Healing, everything. And if you look on the Facebook, you'll be able to find the Instagram through there. So,
Fantastic. So definitely reach out to Mel and connect with her because she is a wealth of information, crystals and beyond.
yes,
So,
thank you so much.
absolutely. So, ladies, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. And if you are looking to also connect with our guest Mel here, we're actually going to be at Lakeview Restaurant tonight in Coventry for a ladies' night out that is happening at 6 p.m. And if you can't make it to this one, then hopefully you can make it to the next one, which will be in March, so that you can find that on our website and register in advance because seats are limited. But we would love to see you and connect with you in person and not just, via the airwaves here. And please be sure to follow us on Facebook, and we're on LinkedIn. Follow our YouTube channel, like us, leave a comment, and subscribe so that you know when the next podcast is released. And of course, we're also on our Podbean, which is also on Apple as well. It pushes out to there too. So thank you very much.